Hi everyone and welcome to Trish Time. This is Trish Tagley and today we have back the Hartsdale Fire Department with Chief Ed and Captain Chip. Hi guys.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Good. Glad to be back.
I'm happy you're back. I'm very excited actually. We did speak to you last time and you gave us a background about the fire department and the different elements and aspects of what you do. And today we're going to be talking about home safety and fire prevention. From my understanding, this is your specialty. So, Captain Chip, would you like to give us a bit of a background on how you came to the Hartsdale Fire Department?
Sure. Well, I've been with the department for 26 years. I started as a volunteer, and with your interview with the chief, that seems to be a way a lot of firefighters start. It's either in their family or they've picked up some time volunteering first, and then they decide to make a career of it. So once I became a volunteer, I was a volunteer for about 6 years. Same thing, I took the test. It interested me a lot. I was very into the volunteering. I was very into the job at that time. So I took the test. I passed the test, and in 1996 I went to the academy, and I've been on the career department since 1996.
Okay, so that's great. So since we're talking today about home safety and fire prevention, and the holiday season is coming up, and these are the times when a lot of people are using candles or having parties, and there's a lot of activity around fires. Can you start off by giving us like a little background on what you talk to the public about when you talk about safety?
Sure. Well, for the main thing is there's always the top topics that are current every year. And the leading causes of fires can be heating. You mentioned candles. We talk about electrical. We talk about people that still smoke, obviously, and cooking. So with those top topics, they don't always stay in that order, but they're always in the top as to what the leading cause is, and they follow through. Smoking, is surprising, is still the #1 cause of deaths in fires. May not be the leading cause of fires, but it's the #1 cause of deaths in fires. So we need to talk about that amongst the smokers and say, look, there's another reason for you not to be smoking. Okay, but a lot of the smoking, just to touch on it briefly, is the proper disposal of your cigarettes. If you're going to be a smoker, put them out. Make sure you're doing it. Smoke outside. If you're smoking outside, don't smoke close to the house. Don't deposit the butts, the ashes near the house. There's been a lot of fires that have been started as deck fires, outside rubbish fires that climb up the house and then wind up getting back inside. So with that aside, as smoking, we can put that away for now. As one, don't do it. Two, if you are going to do it, make sure you dispose of your cigarettes properly.
I mean, with regard to, not that I'm encouraging people to smoke, obviously not, but probably a suggestion would be to have water, like put the cigarettes and cigars in water. Yeah,
like I said, proper disposal. Yeah. You don't want to just grind them out and then leave them. You don't want to grind them out and then dispose of them in the garbage. You want to make sure that if you could, douse them, let them soak, and then deposit them outside. A lot of times people also, they still do this, they fall asleep smoking. So that helps lead to the leading cause of death among smokers.
And then here, Chief Ed, like for example, with regard to the ashes, since we have a lot of, I wouldn't really call it forest, but there are a lot of trees around, and at this time of the year there's a lot of dried leaves. Sometimes when you're smoking, can't an ash, like from the cigarette or cigar,
That can happen, and what happens a lot too is people don't realize that a lot of times they have mulch in their gardens, and they'll throw the cigarettes into the mulch thinking it's really more like dirt and it'll just go out, and mulch will smolder for hours, and then eventually can catch on to the building, and especially if you have vinyl siding, things that could go up and it starts up the outside, gets into the attic, and next thing you know, your house is on fire and you didn't even realize it. But as Chip said, proper disposal is key. Again, you shouldn't smoke, but if you do, dispose of them properly. Just make sure you have a separate receptacle that's just designed just for cigarettes and cigars, or like you say, douse them in water or whatever. Just don't throw them out the window.
Yeah, or even like when you're driving, a lot of people have that tendency to just throw the cigarette or cigar out the window, and there you go into a dried pile of leaves, and
Right.
you drive away, and your cigarette or cigar is still there, smoldering, like you said.
Right.
What other lookouts should the public be aware of for this holiday, especially for the holiday
That's what
season?
I was going to bring up, that you mentioned holiday before, because that could encompass almost everything else, heating, electrical, and kitchen fires, because that's what we do around the holidays, especially electrical fires. Everyone wants to put up lights. Everyone wants to celebrate. So it's uses of extension cords. And they're the cheap ones you can buy for $1, and everyone wants to use those. They're not UL approved, and also they're not the right gauge for what they're using. Okay, so our use of extension cords inside a home, we would prefer there are none. 0 extension cords inside your house. Okay.
Okay.
Mainly because people run them underneath carpeting, they run them behind furniture, and furniture moves. And when furniture moves, sometimes it's on top of the cord, which then kinks the cord, which then puts a break in the wire and doesn't allow the current to run freely back and forth along the wire. So then you have an arc, which slowly builds up. And this could take time. That's why a lot of these things, electrical fire, they're like, oh, everything was fine. Well, it takes time sometimes. It could take days. It could take weeks for the buildup of heat enough to catch what's in the area on fire. So that's why we don't want any extension cords inside the house. We prefer, if you need an extension cord or if you need many things plugged into an outlet, using a power strip. A power strip is a long strip and usually has a breaker on it, and you can get at least 6 devices plugged into it. That is a safe way of doing it. They're designed to cut off if there's any type of overload before your breaker has to cut off on the house. So we prefer those. Those are great. No octopus connections into your outlets. You use those, you can get your 6 or 7 items in there, and they're designed to shut off before your house does.
But okay, I've started to see this though. So you have this strip, right? And then you have those things that plug into the strip that have 3.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
You
It's
don't
like,
want those.
So basically you're saying that it's not a good idea to okay, so I'm using a strip, but let me add this on and then put 3 more into that one. So
If you have more things than you can fit in that strip, you probably have too much electrical stuff in that one area, or not enough outlets in your house. So sometimes it may be a matter of needing to call an electrician and checking the wiring and adding some additional outlets, so that they're properly distributed throughout the house. Because that's another thing that people do. They overload circuits. You plug in your refrigerator, your microwave, your Mr. Coffee, everything all into the same outlet. It way overloads the outlet, and then that could cause problems. And if you have a problem with a fuse or something, it'll overload it. It'll heat up, and next thing you know, you have a fire.
Yeah, and the whole thing with the heat is, especially if you're talking about electrical cords underneath rugs, it's just heating, and the rug actually is flammable.
Right.
It's a material that's highly flammable, and then it just starts to spread.
It starts to spread, and the heat build up, and slowly as it gets hotter and hotter, the build up, it catches fire. It ignites.
I guess it also would go. I mean, I'm just from a common sense perspective. If you have wires that are frayed, don't use them.
Right.
That might be
Right.
something that's like I said, it's common sense, but a lot of people don't think about it. They're like, oh, I just need to use it, and then they forget that they're using something that should be put out of order.
Right. The other thing on that too, not only that they're in good shape, but you want to make sure that they're proper. You want to make sure that anything electrically used, whether it's a power strip, any of your electrical appliances, you want to make sure that they're approved. That they should have the UL approved. It's Underwriters Laboratory. It'll actually have a stamp on it that has been approved by the Underwriters Laboratory. There's a lot of cheap knockoff extension cords and equipment that's out there, coming in from some foreign countries, that are they're cheaply built, they're inferior, and they don't meet the standards that are required. So you always want to make sure you have that UL label on anything electrical that you're using.
But let me ask you this question then. I mean, is there a law that says you cannot sell non-UL approved electric extension cords? I mean, wouldn't that be I'm sorry, but
it's not actually the law. I mean, it's a recommendation, but it's not a requirement per se. So, stores can import and sell anything.
Yeah.
Really?
And some of them may even have a fake UL sticker on there.
So, because if I'm thinking about I have several extension cords. The ones that I use are usually the heavy-duty orange ones.
Right.
Okay. For whatever reason, I have 3 of them. Don't ask me why, but I do. So I use those. But I also have those inexpensive brown and white ones. And those are the ones that you're talking about.
Those are the ones we're more concerned with.
Right.
Right.
So how would you know? Because if I think about it, they usually have, when they're purchased, they have that blue tag that says UL.
Right.
How would you know if it's fake?
Well, that is a problem, because with the way people can do graphics these days, anything could be made to look exactly like. Read the tag, because sometimes the cheaper versions may have improper spelling, improper phrases that may not meet a normal English phrase or American phrase, or however you want to look at it. But the wording may be off a little bit. Something may be misspelled, because they're trying to pass themselves off, and it's not going through. But you'll see a good UL one will be a nice sticker, UL, everything will be properly written, and you'll be able to understand it. And if you have a question, you can go to a place, you can go to the hardware store, wherever you're buying this at, and ask them. It said, are these definitely UL approved? And they can recommend and say, yes, they are, or we're not sure.
If it says underwater laboratory instead of underwriter's laboratory, it's probably good.
That's a good thing. Well, no, you're right. If you check the label, usually if they're trying to just get by, they really won't be paying attention to the wording or the spacing. Or there will be something off.
Right.
So make sure that you check the labels. Something that we did talk about the last time was candles. Okay, so there's a lot of use of candles around the holidays. So would you like to talk about that?
Well, candles are a very big cause of fires now. It's growing because, especially around the holidays, people use candles a lot more. And candles are very nice. Everybody likes them. They create a nice ambiance, and if they're used properly, they're okay. But there's a lot of things that you could do to make them a lot safer. First of all, there's on the market now. There's a lot of these battery-operated candles. They used to be, not that great looking, but
cheesy.
Yeah, cheesy. Yes. That's a very good word. But the ones they make now, they flicker. You really have to actually look inside to see that it's not a real candle. They make them with that flicker. They make them with scented. So it basically gives you everything the regular candle would give, but it's just a lot safer. And if you are going to use a regular candle, you just make sure don't leave them unattended. Make sure that they're in a proper container so that if they do burn all the way down, they're not going to spread out onto something, that has some kind of a base or on a plate or something that's not flammable. So if the candle burns all the way down, it's not going to set your tablecloth on fire or anything. And again, just don't leave home and leave them burning.
That's a major thing. Leaving the house, leaving candles burning, putting them too close to plants, hanging plants, things like that. And we've had that instance of a candle setting a plant that people went out to the airport, and they left their fireplace going, and they left their candles on, and they had a kitchen fire. Fire blowing out the kitchen. They weren't around. The neighbor called it in, and their candles had set fire to the plant, which set fire to their cabinets, which got the kitchen.
Everything else.
Yes, but
yeah.
So.
I mean, it's like I would think more curtains, furniture. But I never thought of plants.
Well, even people like to use them in the bedrooms, things like that. In the middle of the night, they go to sleep, they're tossing, turning, a pillow goes over to it. So there's a lot of it there, too, that can happen, and unfortunately that happens when you're sleeping. So you're not aware at that point. So things can get a lot worse. If there's a big smoke condition that could happen, that could lull you to sleep also. So it's not a good combination. So if you're going to sleep, make sure you blow out your candles before you go to bed.
Well, I mean, if you are going to sleep, there's no reason to have the candle on to begin with.
Right.
And there are flashlights.
Yes.
So if you need one, you should have one beside your bed. I mean, I do.
That's good for your emergency preparedness
Yes.
section too.
Yes. So maybe we can get into a little bit more of the being prepared, being prepared.
Well, that is a big part. Is one is awareness. Two, being aware of all the hazards that could possibly happen in your house and around you. The next thing is notification. So when something does happen, know who you're going to call. Fire department, police department. 911 is your catch-all. Okay, and then getting notified inside your house using a smoke detector. Early detection. Okay, so when you mix early detection with early notification and awareness, that's your fire prevention safety triangle right there. Because the faster we're notified, the faster you're notified. It makes a small fire stay a small fire. And with modern construction and synthetic fabrics as opposed to natural fabrics, fires grow double in size every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds you delay, your small fire gets to be doubled and doubled and doubled. So when you add that to the amount of time in the fire department, which even though we have really good response times, around 4 minutes, if it starts out, you've got 4 minutes of doubling fires. So a small fire can become a room fire very quickly.
So, okay, you just said something really interesting, is that with the modern building materials, they apparently cause fires more frequently.
Well, not so much cause, but when there is a fire, they spread much more quicker. Legacy construction, what you used to build houses out of, where they were built with true wood, what they call dimensional lumber and plaster and lath. If you had a fire in let's say, your kitchen, it would be held into the kitchen for quite a bit of time. It would take quite a bit of time before it would reach the stage where it would flash over and spread and cause, basically prevent you from getting out of the house. Nowadays, with all the plastics and all your furniture and all the other materials in your house, plus the houses are built with like trusses and all this other lightweight construction, particle board. Particle board is basically sawdust that's glued together. So it's sawdust and glue made into, they use it for beams, they use it for plywood. It burns incredibly fast. So within minutes of a fire starting, it could really be spreading fairly far in the house. That's why it's essential. The early notification is absolutely essential so that you can get out of the house before it spreads. We had, about 2 years ago, we had an interesting situation where within a span of about a couple of weeks, we had two houses in the same neighborhood, same general area. Both had fires. One house had smoke detectors, and the smoke detectors notified the residents, and by the time the fire department got there, all the residents were standing outside waiting. It was a small one-room fire. They put it out fairly quickly. A couple weeks before that, in a very, very similar house, almost identical house, an elderly couple that had no smoke detectors in the house. We had a fire in that house, so unfortunately they weren't able to be notified, and one of the residents was killed, and the firefighters had to go in, and actually Chip was one of the people that went in and made a rescue and was able to rescue one of the residents out of the bedroom who was, for the most part unconscious, and they were able to get her to the hospital, and she did survive. It was a very good rescue, but these are the types of things that had, because there were no smoke detectors in the house. So very similar houses, very similar types of fires. Smoke detectors in one, minor fire, family standing outside, nobody hurt. No smoke detectors in the other, and you ended up with a person unfortunately dying and the house being destroyed.
Well, you mentioned that the family was standing outside. So this kind of leads into us talking about a plan.
Right.
People having a plan for how to exit their homes. So would you like to expand on that?
Well, once we're getting into each thing, the notification, now we're going to go to the next step, which is evacuation. Okay, you want to be able to leave your house if need be. You want to be able to know a way out of your house no matter where you are in the house. So first natural reaction is everyone would go to the front door. That's your natural way in and out. Whatever it is, some people use their kitchen doors. Whatever your natural way in and out is the person's first reaction on how to leave. If by chance that is blocked, people get a little disoriented at that time. They're not sure what to do because this is their natural reflex. So we need them to practice getting out of every room in a different manner. Always look for 2 ways out, your normal way out and a secondary. Sometimes that can be a window. Sometimes it's just an area of refuge that you're just going to go to the window for. But you need to find out a plan on how you are going to get out of the house from whatever rooms are in your house. And then once you do that, you want to make sure that everyone has a meeting place outside. And that helps with accountability. We want to make sure that everyone that you know is in the house is accounted for. So when we show up, you can say, yes, we are all here, or no, there's still one person left. And then we'll ask you questions at that point, the age of the person, where the last time they were seen, and then that helps us locate them rather quickly and be able to try and rescue them right away. So knowing your escape plan is very, very important. You need to be able to do it when you're panicked. You need to be able to do it in a situation where there's fire. You need to be able to do it in a situation where it just might be smoke and you can't see. And then crawling under the smoke, can you crawl out of your house? Can you find your way to a door? If you can't, your best place is what we call an area of refuge, and that's closing your door in the room you're in, sealing it if you have to put clothes under the opening at the door to slow any type of smoke down, then getting to a window. Don't break your windows, but open your windows and scream your head off. Okay, you want to alert your neighbors. You want to alert whoever's in the area that there's a fire and where you are. Okay, so confining those fires and keeping it separate from you is very big, because those doors can actually hold back quite a bit of fire for quite a bit of time. Okay, so that helps us in making sure that the fire is in one area and you're in a second area. If you are leaving and you are able to get out of the house and there is a fire, do the same thing, but lock the fire in. Shut the doors, all doors leading to that fire. And then on your way out of the house, shut your door, but don't lock it. If the people are living in apartment buildings, same thing. Shut the door. If it's a bedroom fire, shut the door. If it's a kitchen fire and you have doors on the kitchen, shut the door. As you're leaving the apartment, shut the door, but don't lock it. So then this way, when we get to your apartment door, we don't have to force open the door. We can just nicely open it up and make our way into the apartment or the house, depending on what it is. Because that just delays us. It's only going to take us a few seconds or a minute to get into it anyway, but if we don't have to, it's a lot easier if we can just turn the handle and open up the door. But that not allowing the fire to have that added oxygen, whether it's from outside, whether it's from a hallway, whether it's from the rest of your apartment or home, confining that lets the fire die down because it's eating up the oxygen in the room. And hopefully that's where it's going to stay until we get there, and then we can confine it to what a one-room fire is so much better than a 2-room fire.
Yeah, or more.
Yes.
Or your whole home.
Yes.
The other thing, too, is, I mean, there are people, obviously, there are different types of homes. There are some people that have ranches, so basically you open your window and you can just roll out and you're on the ground. There are those that obviously live in 2 stories, sometimes maybe 3. So would you suggest having actual ladder of some sort accessible somewhere?
The escape ladder or anything that you have, like some people have fire extinguishers, anything that you use to help you only works if you practice with it. You can't expect yourself to be panicked and then taking that ladder out of your closet, throwing it out your window, and knowing how to use it and being prepared to use it. So will you get hurt more? Probably. If you never practiced with it, if you never used that, if you never deployed it and got out. Same thing with fire extinguishers. People have them and they've never used them. So what we do in the firehouse is people come by and they're like, oh, this is an old one. We're going to go get a new one. So I ask them, have you ever used one? They say no, so we'll take them in the back. We'll have them pull the pin. We'll have them aim. We'll have them squeeze, and we'll have them sweep. So they'll actually have used one now. So they'll learn that. So when they buy their new replacement one, it's not just something else that's sitting in the corner that we're expecting or they're expecting themselves to use. Spur of the moment, in a panic, it's not going to happen. So anything that you have that's for your safety is only good enough, even if it's a flashlight, is only good enough if you know where it is, if you've practiced with it, and you've guided, like using a flashlight to guide yourself out of the house in the dark, things like that. Only good if you practice.
Okay, so we've come to the end of the show, so thank you very much, because it's really important, especially like I said, you know, and I've said throughout the show that it's the holiday season, and this is the time when we're using more electricity for lighting, as you said, more candles for the celebration, where more people are getting together to party, so we really have to be careful with fire and what might cause a fire. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us again today. Obviously, there's a lot more that we can talk about with regard to fire prevention. Please make sure that you take their advice to heart, especially the part about practicing exiting the home in case there's a fire and having a meeting place. So thank you again to the Hartsdale Fire Department for being here, and thank you for being on Trish Time. Bye-bye.